Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Before I get into these two articles that I have prepared for this video, let's agree to some terms or notions. Let's say we have a football game and you have two teams, and one of the teams is in an offensive and it's advancing. What is the other team most likely doing? Most likely doing is retreating and being in a defensive. They can't be both in offensive and both of them advancing. Okay, it's the same territory, they can't. So earlier today and yesterday I made some videos using the Institute for the Study of War. Now that is a Washington DC based think tank, which is not a Institute for the Study of War. It's an institute for giving us a narrative. That's how I got to learn. When they first appeared, it was April first time March last year, and I used them because I didn't have any evidence to say that they are skewed. They're not objective. They're not studying something, but they have an agenda. You know, they all have an agenda, but for the first 1 month, maybe 2 months, I didn't catch them going this way. Then I caught them and I was like, okay. I got some research. I looked into who's the chief over there and I figured out, okay, got it. Now, why did I start with this? Because I have these two articles where they tell us that the Ukrainians moved onto defensive along much of the front line. So this is a statement, an assessment actually, coming from the UK intelligence. And we all know that the UK intelligence is infallible. It cannot make mistakes. It tells the truth all the time, and its assessments are perfect. Now, I'm bullshitting, obviously. Ukrainska Pravda, December 20th, 2023. Ukraine moves on to defensive along much of the front line. That means the Russians are in the offensive. Now put this together with the articles that I used earlier today and yesterday to say that the Russians are advancing along 5 fronts, coming again from the Institute of Study of War. With this, that tells us that the Ukrainians are really running back. That's one, and the other article comes from Ukrinform and it's titled Ukrainian Forces Pivot to More Defensive Posture Along Front Line. Now, these guys are trying to be mild and use euphemisms like they pivot, they move towards, move towards. They're not going to tell us they turn around and find better positions by retreating. I will not use the word retreat, I'm guessing, because I'm going to read part of these articles. The problem is when you move in a defensive posture, that means you are in an offensive. If you pivot, that means you changed, right? So if you pivot, that means they pivot from an offensive. So if you didn't know, the Ukrainians were, according to this articles, on the offensive, and now they moved into the defensive. Got it? So let's make sure how these guys are trying to get us see the things. I think that the Russians are really breaking the front, and these guys are just going back and say, okay, where should we go now and defend? And they move things way back so they don't have the Russians time to catch them from behind. And they're going to create another line of defense and plan again. Good planning. I said this for a long time. So let's go and read the Ukrainska Pravda article. And it says UK Defense Intelligence has stated that in recent weeks, Ukraine has mobilized efforts to improve its fortifications as it sandwiches to a more sandwiches, Jesus Christ, switches. Not hungry, I ate. Anyway, it sandwiches, okay, to a more defensive position along much of the front line. So this comes from the UK Defense Intelligence. So they pointed out that this change has been carried out in response to Zelensky calls made at the end of November 2023 to speed up fortification work on key fronts. I covered that and I said the exact thing. These guys are regrouping back, which I think is a very good decision. Analysts noted that as part of this project, Ukraine has been working to improve defenses along the border with Belarus, where as of mid-December 2023, so-called Dragon's Teeth, barbed wire and anti-tank ditches have been installed. At the same time, Russia is continuing to conduct local offensives on several fronts, but individual attacks rarely exceed a platoon, as UK intelligence notes. So, again, it says a major Russian breakthrough is unlikely, and overall the front is characterized by stasis, probably not nobody moves in any direction. You see how they try to make it? Now, if these guys, the Russians, are just individual attacks rarely exceed a platoon, then what does that tell me about my defenses? Again, that's an idiotic way of putting things in perspective. That is, if I go to a tournament and I lose in the first round, let's say I fight someone, and I lose. When I go back home, if I say, man, the guy that I fought, well, I lost the first fight, but the guy was such a loser, man. The guy I fought was such a badass. I was like, bad, not good. No, a weak guy. Just, individual attacks rarely exceeding a platoon. So losers. So if I go and say that, a person like me will get that. So if those guys are losers and they beat you, what would that make you? A super loser? Yes. So when these guys are losing, going on a defensive, because not really something big, individual attacks rarely exceeding a platoon, that means that you have what? One person here, another one here after a mile, and another one here after 2 miles, 5 miles, you have one person a mile. If these guys rarely exceed a platoon, see how idiotic these guys, I think they are. Do not make it sound, even if you want to insult the enemy, actually you insult you. Because the weaker you make the enemy, the weaker you make actually you appear to be, because they are winning. That's why when these guys are saying how fantastic the Western weapons are, the intelligence, the training, how great we are, and how garbage the Russian rusty and ugly old MiGs and Sukhois and Pantsers and S-300s, and the military is full of convicts and losers, and they're winning, doesn't add up somewhere, and we know exactly where. So let's go to the second article here. Ukraine Forum. In recent weeks, Ukraine has mobilized a concerted effort to improve field fortifications as its forces pivot to a more defensive posture along much of the front line. All right, we got that one, and we can look over the map. Do you see? The map is about what? 2,000, 1,000 kilometers, something like this, the whole thing, even more. And you go on the defensive, and you got here where you said that, hey, I'm actually on the other side of the Dnieper River. I'm conducting, I have here a bridgehead right here. And then the counteroffensive in Zaporozhye is dead. Again, I think this is a clear retreat, regroup, and hope for a better day, which I think it works fine. You couldn't defend them in these positions, you go back to find others. The problem is you don't have troops. I mean, Ukraine is, I think, depleted of troops, of human capital, of humans, people to fight. So yeah, we're going to build defensive fortifications, but there are humans operating, bulldozers and trucks, and you need them. Where are they? You can bring 3,000 bulldozers. Do you have 3,000 bulldozer operators? Maybe you do. but I doubt it. From most of the articles that I'm reading, from the Ukrainian side, from the Russian side, the Ukrainians are in a big doo-doo with the personnel. They want to mobilize about 500,000 Ukrainians. Why is that? You need, because you don't have any more. On the front, you are depleted. Will you find the 500? Yeah, I think they could find 500,000. Will they be, or, well, we'll see. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.